All right, everyone, it's 6 o'clock. If you haven't voted yet, you can see an election committee member in the back and cast your vote. Looks like everybody's voted that's here. Thanks for coming. I'd like to first thank the election committee for the organization that they put forward on this for this voting. We haven't had an election for a few years now, so it was interesting to see the process, to say the least. Tonight's order of presentation will be, we'll make the presentation through the various board members that all hold a management position within the club. Our board president, Jill Riddell, couldn't be here. She apologizes, but she's dealing with a medical condition that prohibits her attending these sorts of things. I think most of you are aware of her health condition, but that's the reason she isn't here. I'll be handling that portion of the meeting. The second group will be the membership report. That'll come from Jim McKenna and Rick Davis with our membership director, David Keller. David's up front. I think you know Jim. Rick Davis is dealing with a medical problem in Tacoma with his wife, so he couldn't make it either. The next report will be from the Greens and Ground Committee. That's Rick Walker, Ray Melton, and David Escobedo. David's here at the front. I think you all know David, and you know Rick and Ray. They're in the second table there. Then we'll get a golf report from Brandon Evans, our director of golf, and Kathy Vogt. Brandon's here. I know everybody knows him, and I'm sure everybody knows Kathy. Then we'll have a facilities report with Tim O'Brien and our new addition to the club, Ken Simpson, who's right up front here. Keith, I'm sorry, Ken, Keith. Keith's in the front. You can't miss him. He's got the beard. Then we'll have a vice president's report with Leslie Brown. Leslie's here at the end. We'll have a facilities report. We went over that. And then I'll do a financial report with Barbara Jean Strussel. Then finally, we'll have questions from the audience that we'll try to field here, or we'll record them and get you answers. Let's see what we got here. We'd also like to thank Terry Bice, who worked behind the scenes for about a year now. Terry was very instrumental in getting the new Lakes well constructed. He was very helpful in the design, also worked very hard on all sorts of technical aspects. I don't see Terry here tonight, but when you do, thank him. He did an awful lot of work on that project. So we'll start with Jill's presentation, which is a discussion on the value proposition that the club offers. Years ago, Terry Bice created a chart that identified our value at Westbrook Village Golf Club. Basically, it balances what you want to what you need to what you can afford. We can't stay stagnant or we fall behind our competition. We can't move too fast or too grand or we lose what we're willing to pay. We are who we are with incremental improvements to keep us the best value and golf experience in the West Valley. Every time you stop on a tee box, you have a strategy to play the hole. You have to figure out how to get the ball in the hole with the least amount of strokes. Sometimes the actions for that strategy must be flexible based on how your body feels that day, the weather, the course conditions, and distractions and emergencies that happen as you go down the fairway. You return to your bag and adjust the strategy to reach your goal. The board of directors works in a similar fashion. By creating as many phase strategies, we are able to sidestep to deal with emergencies, well break and build, or distraction, COVID, and then return to the direction of reaching our goal. That flexibility has kept our spending in check to manage the operations, labor, improvements, and beauty of our golf courses and the experience of our golf. It takes a full team to make this happen, board, staff, and members. Together, we are all Westbrook. Oops. Okay, now we'll have the presentation with the membership group. That'll be Jim McKenna. Rick Davis is absent with David Keller.
Hi there, I'm David Keller. I deal with the membership. Been here about 4.5 years, and it's been a pretty amazing ride. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? For some reason, though, I'm not going to talk about membership. I'm going to talk about... A lot of people have asked me, what am I doing at the moment, because we got a wait list, and just to say that we've had 200 inquiries over the last 3 months for membership, and on the wait list there's about 70 names, so it's been pretty incredible, the popularity of Westbrook Village. But one of the other things I was asked to do was make an application for a grant, and or a grant, as we say here. It was through the Arizona Office of Tourism. And it was basically for any golf club that was built pre-1986. And one of our courses, the Lakes course, built in around about 1984, qualified. And it was in relation, the grant is in relation to reducing the turf acres to meet the Arizona Department of Water Resources guidelines. And basically to reduce turf acres to less than 90. At the moment, I think we're around about 100, so we're looking to reduce about another 10 acres. And the Arizona Office of Tourism was going to award grants up to $105,000 if we met the criteria. One was that we were pre-1986, and the other was that we were offering a sustainable project to use less water. And anyway, so I get an email from Jill to say, can you make an application? Can you fill in the application? Well, it was about 9 questions on not just about the golf course. In fact, there was very little about the golf course. It was all about how Westbrook Village Golf Club would help the local community, not Westbrook Village as such, but the city of Peoria, and how it would help to bring in tourism and help local businesses such as restaurants and other outlets, shops, et cetera, Anyway, after considerable waffle on my behalf, I made the application and sent it off. This was at the end of September. And basically, about 2 weeks later, I get an email to say we have successfully won a grant of $105,000, and that we can use on the Lakes course to remove turf and xeriscape and whatever we want to do to make it drop down to about 90 acres. All good news. 4 months later, we're still waiting for the money, but I am assured we will be receiving it sooner rather than later. But it was a great exercise. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's great for the club. Another great thing for the club. We're doing really well. You're going to hear from Jim McKenna in a minute about how well Westbrook has done over the past 5 years and is still doing great. And this is just another feather in our caps. Thank you.
It's amazing a guy who can't speak English can sell so well. So I'm not going to talk about membership either. I'm also kind of the pseudo head of the water rights, and we haven't gone over this for a few years. This is a really good program that board with Scott or Bob and Karsh and Terry Bice. Anyway, I'll forget some names, but anyway, they got us some income from water, and right now we have Type 1 water rights of 1,135 acre feet, and those were with the 1994 purchase of the golf course. So those are to water the golf course. And then when these guys put together the Lakes Irrigation Program, they acquired Type 2 water rights, which were to irrigate. We sell that water to the different sub-HOAs and the HOA. And that was 144 acre feet of owned and 100 acre feet of leased. The difference is if you own it, you don't have to pay for it. Obviously, if you lease it, you have to pay every year a fee. Well, for some reason in 2017, I can't explain this, Tom Lodge may be able to, we had an offer that people wanted to have our leased 100 acre feet, and they were willing to give us 116 acre feet of owned. So now we own 116 and the 144. We then exceeded our capacity with the sub-HOAs and HOA and went out and leased another 23 acre feet, which it was a 5-year lease, and that will be coming up next year. It should be able to be renewed. It's not a problem. But anyway, we have a total available for lease 283 acre feet. All of that is leased. We actually went over, and that's why I had to go out and get the extra 23 acre feet. But this year we actually came in under, which was the first year in 3 years. So our rate is around, it's about $1,000 an acre feet. So you can figure it out. It's about a little over $250,000 of revenue for the club. So that's the water situation. Okay, this is the membership challenge, and this is my story. Rick Davis and I co-chair the membership, and this is my story, and I guess I'll stick to it because this is what's happened over the last 5 years. I'll be leaving the board this year. I'm term limited out, and in 2012, we had 494 ASW members. ASW is what the board calls annual, semi-annual, and weekend. Those are the kind of the revenue generating true members of the club. We also had an associate program that was put in a few years earlier. At that time it was 48. The associates were able to buy 10 round packets and had no association with the club as far as liability. So obviously this became a very popular program, and as you can see, it went from 48 to 165 by 2017. Our regular membership went from 494 to 375. This is when I stepped in. So we had lost 119 annual members and we gained 117. Doesn't sound like we lost any members at all. We just had people switch. This cost us about $600,000 over year on that. So our journey was to figure out how to turn this around. I called it a death spiral, and I had no idea what I was doing or what I was supposed to do. But we went to the members, got suggestions. We had 3 different consultants that we met with to find out what was going on. We had probably a third of the board that wanted to go with the consultants to take over the club because we were not going to make it financially. And so we talked it over and we decided, there's nothing here that they're doing that we can't do. So we hired Denise Adams. She was a golf membership consultant from Palm Springs. She came in here on May 1st and spent the week, May of 2017. She interviewed members, employees, real estate people, board members. She toured and evaluated our facilities. We took her to different golf courses around our competitors. And about a week later, we got a written report. This report was, I'm going to say, probably 40 pages long, very detailed on what to do. So we decided to try to do it ourselves instead of hiring somebody to get it done. And we called it a pathway to membership. Okay, so our vision, which really wasn't really a vision, but we knew we had to increase our annual members and decrease our pay per play, which were the associates, and to maintain and increase the quality of the golf experience on somewhat more of a limited budget at this time. We had over $250,000 of revenue in associates. So this was a big concern. Denise's suggestion was just to drop the associate program, but we knew we couldn't make up $250,000 by doing that. So what we did is we froze it. And it's still frozen today. Anybody who was an associate member can still be an associate member. Obviously, the number's gone down and the prices have gone up. We're not dumb about that part, but we still do have some associate members. And then we wanted to promote annual memberships. And then probably the one thing that was we wanted to get the $250,000 back for some type of membership that was like associate members. And so I came up with the idea of a 30, a 60, and a 90-day annual membership. So that instead of a price per round, it was a price for a period of time. And we went through a lot of work with that, I can remember. We were trying to figure out all the problems that would cause. And the other thing we had to do is we had to hire a director of membership. And of course, that was David. I said David doesn't speak English, but if you get to know David, he can help you a lot. He can answer your questions. He's in the know, and he's a very, very good employee. So to make a long story short, as of end of 2021, we had increased our membership by 139 members on the ASW. As of to date, which is only a few months later, we're at 205 additional members. So what we did is we turned around, and our budget now on membership is $1 million more than it was 5 years ago. So what have we accomplished, or what are we trying to accomplish? Our big goal is to get the one membership for all. That may not be might not be happening next week, but at some point you're either a member of the club or you're not a member of the club, and that's what we'd like to get to. We wanted a 6-month private status, to have enough people here that we didn't have to have all the Golf Now and all those other people come in here and neglect our course. And that's, if you were here during those times, those people would come in, they just would, they were terrible on the course. So we have established that. We are now 6-month private. And of course, we'd love to have a wait list, and we have done that now too. But why a wait list? We did this because in all our talks with the management companies, their number one goal was always revenue. And I owned my own business. I still own a business. Revenue's a great thing, don't get me wrong. But they were at the expense, they wanted to have only 80% of the membership be able to get a tea time any day. So that was what they felt the number should be to get to. I always felt the number was to get to where everybody had a chance to get a tea time and put revenue as number two. I mean, we're up $1 million, so we were running $1 million less and still had a very nice golf course. And so now that's why we've limited membership. Now the next question comes is, how do you get over the wait list? The wait list is dependent on daylight hours. So during December and November, we have the least number of hours. You know, us people that come from the north, we play in the summer and we can play from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock at night. We don't understand that there's only from 8 to 5 daylight when you're playing golf. So when you come to Arizona and you're playing in the winter, we have very limited tee times and we can only do so much. Luckily, we have Brandon, who has done tons of analysis on tee times and how many people we can handle and do that. So we got to a point where we had the tee times filled up, so we put a temporary hold. Now we've already went after 10 more members. David got another one today. I was over there and a guy walked in and so we're on our wait list, and as the daylight gets up, we'll actually take in more members. And we can take in up to about 10% of our membership because we know we'll lose 10% of our membership come signing time. We'll then freeze that again with the idea that once we see how many people actually pay, then we'll be back to our numbers that we know. So this will be an ongoing learning experience, and it will continue to cycle. Again, come around February 1st, we'll start letting more members in, hopefully, if we can keep that wait list going. So that's where we're at there. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, though, that David and I were discussing today. We've had 185 inquiries since November 1st for our golf course. So be proud of that. I mean, we've got people wanting to come. Our waiting list is now at 70, and that was after we opened it up to 10 more. All our new members are now paying a $1,000 initiation fee, and that started with when we opened up the waiting list. This is, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, David got a call from the general manager of a nearby club. She says, "It's well known in the area you are the most successful club. What's your secret?" And David emailed me. I says, "Don't tell him the secret." So, but the secret is, number one, our course conditions. When people come in, that's the number one thing, David. He goes out, shows them the course, and of course they're interested in that. And that's our number one draw. And our number two draw are the people. And that's a very strong draw. We've talked about all these different clubs, and we're one of the only private clubs in our area around here for the 6 months. But the groups that we have and that play together and the friends you meet, you can come to Westbrook Village, and within 3 or 4 weeks, you can have 50 to 100 new people you've met just from playing golf. It's amazing. So that's that. This is my thoughts to ponder. Denise Adams, before she left, she said, "These golf courses are a hidden gem. I would love to live here and the people here are special. She she traveled all over the United States looking at golf courses, and this is the only one she ever said that about. So be proud of that. You know, few golfers get to enjoy a private golf club, and we should enjoy it, and we should enjoy it because we own it, and that's the bottom line. So treat it like you own it. Thank you.
I hope you all appreciate what Jim has done with this pathway to membership. It really is incredible where we've been and where we are right now, and he was the brains behind it with a little help from Denise. Now we're going to have the Greens and Grounds report with Rick Walker and Ray Melton and David Escobedo. I wanted to recognize Ray before we get the presentation started. Ray is leaving the board after 3 years, and he was very, very instrumental in the construction of the practice green at the Lakes facility. He came up with the idea, he brought it to the board, we discussed it and debated it, and then we decided we would do it with the proviso that Ray would go find the money. And he went out and fundraised $20,000, 25. In 2 days, he raised $25,000, about $20,000. So quite a thing. He's been with us for 3 years. We're going to miss him and his ideas. Now I'll turn it over to the three of them.
To echo what Jim said, I've owned a home here now for 13 years. And I leased it for the first 6, and then I was back and forth for a few years. We moved here 3.5 years ago. Do you know I have never had to make a tee time? All I do is sign up with the groups. If I've got company, if my dad or my oldest son's coming, it's just an amazing place. I said the first day I showed up with Coach Anderson, I went home and I said, I got 45 new friends. It's that amazing. All right, Greens and Grounds. It was a busy year for us at Westbrook Village, very busy, and we're going to highlight some of our projects. First is a new well. Seems like it was a long time ago, doesn't it? But it came online in March. And I'll go back to the Terry Bice story. Terry spent countless hours in doing a lot of calculations. He evidently on a couple of his properties has some wells, and he's the one that made a recommendation to us to put a 450 horse motor on it rather than the 250 that a lot of people were saying. And we're certainly glad we have. Some of the numbers are quite astonishing. This new well, the old well was pumping, it was down to 800 gallons per minute. Which still is a lot of water, trust me. The new well with the 450 horse is 1,900 gallons a minute we pump out of this well. And the other thing that's been able to do is, you know, we all pay electricity costs, and we pay a lot of money just like everything else when we're pumping water. Well, we can pump all of our water, even in the summer, overnight. So we're not paying higher electrical bills and things, and plus we also can rest this thing for 8, 10, 12 hours a day rather than the old well that never shut off. And anybody that lives in the high rise would know that because you'd hear it all the time. The other thing is I get asked all the time, where's that well? I just think it's common knowledge, but I get asked all the time. So if you don't know, it's right across from the HOA office over here in the nice little 20 by 20 yellow brick building where the horseshoe courts used to be. And I also get asked about those. I think they're going to build them back behind the tennis courts, but they don't seem to be in a big hurry. So it was a trade of land that we did, and it will go back there. The old well is still working. It is in between the high-rise building, if you didn't know, because I didn't until I got on the board. And we use it sparingly and can use it in emergency if you know the other one get hit by lightning or something else would happen. I'm going to turn it over to David.
Thanks, Rick. One of the other things that we worked on this past summer was adding greenside sprinklers to the Vistas greens. Why exactly did we add sprinklers around the greens at the Vistas? Unlike the Lakes irrigation system, which is considered state-of-the-art and very water conscious and conservative, the Vistas was not. We had what we call full circles around the Vistas greens, so if we wanted to water just the greens, we weren't able to. We were watering aprons when we didn't want to. If we wanted to water the aprons, we had to water the greens as well. So we decided to take this task on. We originally had talked to some subcontractors and priced it out to a price of about $110,000. That was pretty steep. And after talking to my staff and talking to the board, and we decided that we could probably take this project on in-house, and doing so, we saved the club about $70,000. We also, with the new sprinklers, saved the club about 20,000 gallons a night in the summertime, because we're able to isolate water where we need it as opposed to wasting water like we were doing before. So that was something that really worked out well for us. Go ahead. Go ahead. With the money that we saved, we were able to address other issues that had been kind of put on the back burner. Some of those were leveling tee boxes. Leveling tee boxes is a pretty common practice with golf courses. They, over a period of time, you know, they get uneven, they get unleveled. It's kind of like the roof in your house. It's not eternal. It's not going to last forever. It comes a time when they need to be addressed. And one of the worst issues that we had was at the north practice tee at the Vistas. We had always talked about turning that into a better practice facility, something that Mike Fry can use to give lessons and even classes and whatnot. And the old tee box was just not functional for that. So we were able to subcontract that, get a contractor out here with a professional shaper and all the equipment that's needed to do that. And alongside that, we were able to expand and level tee boxes number 3 here at the Lakes and number 4 at the Vistas. We added about 15 to 20% of space on those tee boxes, and doing so cost us about $40,000, yet we were still $30,000 under the original 110 to just do the greenside sprinklers. So we spent a lot of time talking about it, thinking about it, pricing things out, discussing it with the board, and together we were able to come out ahead and get 2 projects done for the price of 1.
Last May, 6 of us from Greens and Grounds and the board took a trip to Eloy, Arizona, about an hour and a half south of here, to visit Evergreen Turf. If you don't know, Evergreen Turf also supplies all the turf and grass for the Arizona Cardinals Stadium and the Las Vegas Raiders new stadium. So they're a big-time deal. Just thousands of acres of turf. It's really impressive. But what we wanted to do, there's a new turf Bermuda grass out called Tiff Tuff, T-I-F-T-U-F, Tiff Tuff. And we're finding out, or it's been advertised, that it's much more cold tolerant and 20% more drought tolerant. And we're all, as you know, running into some water issues going forward. So we decided to go down there and take a look at it. Very impressive, very tight. We really liked the way it was growing. And the tees that David just talked about, those 3 tees that we redid, that's what's on those tee boxes. And I think if you go up next time and reach down and try and pull some grass out of there, you'll see what it is. It's real tough and it's very tolerant. And we hope in the future, that's another thing that we're looking at is, again, every year, a lot of courses about every 5 to 7 years level tees. They level their par 3 tees. They do some things. We haven't done it for a while. So we did 3, and we're hoping to look at a few going forward in the future. But it was a very interesting visit, and we were glad we did it. Talk about xeriscaping?
You guys have noticed the xeriscaping going on at the Vistas. We've xeriscaped just over 4 acres at the Vistas. A lot of these areas that we looked at were areas that we believe do not affect play a whole lot. For example, hole number 6 at the Vistas, the right side there. I'm not sure why hole number 7, which is right across the way, was xeriscaped along the wall, and why number 6 was not. And we have the same situation on number 8 at the Vistas. The left side was all grass. The right side of the car path is xeriscaped. So basically, we just kind of took the opposite side of the car path and just kind of made it mirror both sides. And doing so, we're expecting to see a savings of close to 50,000 gallons a night, especially in the summertime when we start getting into the 100-plus degrees. and having to water all that Bermuda. That's not to mention the amount of money we'll save in herbicides and fertilizer and mowing and whatnot. So in the end, I believe we're going to come out ahead by doing these areas, and I don't believe that we compromise the integrity of the golf course or changed a whole lot.
David came to us during overseeding this year and said that he wanted to try adding about 2 to 3 inches of sand to all the bunkers this year. We go through them with the Sand Pros, but they still get packed down a lot. And so he's found that to be the most economical and best way to do that and keep our bunkers in good shape. And I think if you've played recently, a lot of the bunkers are in a lot better shape. And so we're going to continue to do that as a cost-effective way to keep them playing well. One more thing on the watering and saving money and xeriscaping is the fact that a lot of you, I'm sure, don't know, but in January of 2025, there's 301 golf courses in Arizona. As of January 2025, no golf course can water more than 90 acres of turf. 90 acres is the limit. We have 120 acres at the Vistas, and we've just taken out about 15 with the stuff that we've done right now. So the other thing about xeriscaping is it's necessary. We just have to do it to cut down the turf and what we're watering. Then next is overseed. As I'm sure a lot of you heard, one of the things that I didn't know, 90% of the ryegrass seed, and ryegrass is, we have 2 types of grass here. Bermuda that is the summer grass, ryegrass that we plant in the fall, that's the winter grass. 90% of the ryegrass that is grown comes from the state of Oregon. I didn't know that, didn't know why I should, but they had severe drought conditions last year. They have had for 2 years. And also some of the farmers just decided that there wasn't any money in it, so they quit harvesting it. And so seed this year was real nip and tuck. David, with all of his contacts, we couldn't get it from the regular guy we normally bought from. He had to go through 2 or 3 different vendors to secure the seed. We were hoping for 70,000 pounds. We got 65,000. We didn't know what we were going to get, if at all. And a year ago, we paid $1.07 a pound. It was a little over $2 a pound this year. So it's something we're going to have to deal with. We're hoping that next year is better. We'll keep you posted. But it's the other thing that the HOA, Jill had gone and we got relieved from overseeding some areas, HOA areas. If you can think at this lakes course behind the 5th green and the 6th tee, we are obligated by the agreement to water, seed, mow, and keep all that green. They let us not do that in some areas this year with the shortage of both seed and water. So seed was a big deal. We were awful happy to see it show up. And I think the overseeding went very well, and hopefully we'll continue doing that. We might just have a little altercations in the future again as to where and what we overseed. We're going to have another open house in March. I see a few of you in the audience that were at the last one. Basically, it's an opportunity for you to come over to the Vistas maintenance yard, and David and Jose and Jaime will explain all the equipment that we have, what we use it for, how much it costs, and just go through everything. We're gonna show you what we do. I think it's very informational. You can ask all the questions you want, and we're gonna try and do this 2 or 3 times a year so that you're a little bit more informed and just come over and see. I think some of you, we do all our maintenance in-house. Jaime's just a real treasure, and we sharpen all of our blades in-house. We have sharpeners that they invested in a couple years ago at both maintenance yards, but I think you'd find it to be very interesting if you will make sure that we post that out there and that you'd come and meet with us and David and Jose and get to know a little bit more about what we do and why we do it. And my last slide, which I didn't know I was going to have to talk about till today, I've said to Jill a couple different times and to David, and we always talk about Greens and Grounds meetings, and I said what we'd like to do is make sure that anybody that wants to get involved, get involved. You know, I was asked by a few people 5 or 6 years ago, why don't you get on the board? You've been on a lot of boards. And I said, you know, I don't know how this board operates. I don't know anything about it. So I got on the golf committee for 2 years with Kathy. And I kind of learned what the club was about and kind of got to know, went to a few board meetings, what it was about. And my hope in the future, this is the first year with elections, and the committee did a wonderful job to get 10 people to run and do it. And I think in the future, what I'd like to see is more people, if you want to, if you're somebody that doesn't get on the board this year, or you want to get on the board, get on a committee. Come in and see what we do. Show up at committee meetings. The Greens and Grounds meets, you can call Barbara Jean and she'll tell you, we meet, the first Friday of every month at 8:30. And you're more than welcome. You don't necessarily have to get on the committee. If you have some concerns, some questions, show up and come and see what we do. But I would encourage everybody, if you want to, is to get involved, get on a committee, and my vision would be in the future that we pull from committees potential board members to run, that get in and spend a year or two learning what we do and how things run and all that kind of stuff. So I would just encourage any of you and encourage some of your friends that have an interest or have some concerns to show up to some of our meetings and get involved. So thank you.
Thanks to those three. They do a great job on the golf course, don't they? It's beautiful green and great place to play golf. Next, we have Kathy Vogt and Brandon Evans. They're going to speak to you about the golf experience. You should know that Kathy has been instrumental in bringing all the entertainment to the club in the evenings. She was the one that is the brainchild behind all that and did all the organization. So, Kathy and Brandon.
Drop that down a little bit there. Thank you all for attending. I'm just going to briefly go over our team that we have here. We have a great team. I think you all know that. Go over some of our local rules, mainly the protocols from 2020 that we still have in effect. Also the cart rules, cart abuse, and some ideas that we have going into this year. Go over our summer pricing plans and goals, kind of the history of that and where we're thinking of going. And then kind of look at how the events are going to go for the rest of the year. I think everyone in this room should be pretty acquainted with all of our staff. We have a really good staff. I've been here, this is going on my 10th year. I've been a PGA member since 2007, joined Westbrook in 2012. Great place, great people. Soon after me came Chris in 2013. He got his PGA membership while he was at the club in 2018. And then we got Carrie in 2013 as well. She's looking at going into the LPGA program. That'll be a great step for her. In 2014, we got Daniel Prado, who came, I think he was working with Carrie at the time. But he joined us, and he's in the PGA program, currently going through his apprentice levels. And then after that, we didn't really have that much staff change. And then in 2019, we picked up both Amy Wardick and Mike Fry, which have been great additions to our team. We have a really good staff, and as you can tell, it's not a large staff. This is the bulk of our staff. We have 4 part-timers that help us as well. But when you have 2 golf courses that are open for about 12 hours a day each facility, it's a lot of work, and they do a great job. Going into 2022, this is the closest we've been to normal yet, so this is really good. We had a couple years there that were a little different, but we are getting much closer to normal. Our rental cart demand is diminishing substantially. We're not having the issue that we had last year, the prior year with rental carts. There's actually quite a few that are in our cart barn most of the days. We do have a few days which we use a lot. Rental carts are very important for us, especially during the last 2 years, because we're kind of limited on how many we can have. We only have 40 at each facility, and that's an increase. We used to only have about 35. So we picked up 10 more carts the last 2 years just to get where we're at. It helps us a lot in the summer, but the last 2 years with the amount of members that we're using rental carts, it was very, very beneficial. We never had a requirement for members to take their own cart. It was suggested that they take their own cart or their comfort level, and we still don't have a requirement. And in fact, as you've all heard when we do our announcements, we ask if you're comfortable riding with others to please pair up, and you've been doing a very good job with that. Thank you. At some point, we obviously will go back to a 2 cart per group requirement. Now, this is important due to course compaction. I think you've heard, David talk about it, me talk about it in the golf shop. Course compaction is something you can't see. And it's something that if you don't start somewhat early, you're not going to notice until you get the negative consequences from it. And that's basically, if you look at a lot of the areas where you see a lot of cart traffic where they enter and exit going around greens or tee boxes, it's very wear and dry there. Also, when you notice when we go through the transition in June, basically, that area is also hit the hardest because there's no Bermuda left underneath it. So we either have to replant it or we have to do something else to get it going. David's doing a great job with his aerification, and he's done a great job with fertilizer this year, and I think that's why you can see a lot of, the course looks amazing. So compaction is always something you have to keep in the back of your mind, and it's something you can't see, unfortunately. Cart abuse. I think everybody in here knows somebody that abuses our rules with carts. There's a lot of people here that do that, some worse than others. We've tried a number of different things. We don't have the staff to be able to monitor the course constantly because on a busy day, and we're busy every day, it takes a ranger about an hour to make one loop around the golf course. So when we catch one person, then we have to watch one person, then it kind of takes away from everything else. So it's pretty difficult to monitor this unless you had a whole bunch of rangers and you're just trying to be sticklers on everything. One thing we are going to add in starting next week is we do have some video cameras that we're going to put out throughout the golf course in some areas that get abused quite a lot. We're going to move those around from time to time, go through the video. It's all via cellular, gets stored up in the cloud. We'll take some of the abusers, we'll send them out letters the first time probably, and then after that it's going to be some type of suspension or penalty with fines. The board is still discussing on what they're going to do with there, but we are going to start to use some video monitoring in key areas to try to combat some of this. Cart rules are pretty simple. I mean, there's not much to it. Keep all 4 of your tires on the cart path 30 yards from tee boxes and greens. Try not to drive in the direction, try to drive the same direction as the cart path when you're around greens. It's a touchy area because you don't want to get the where you're driving over the same area constantly. So use your best judgment there, but that's always something you want to keep in the back of your mind. Going into the end of this year and next year, we are going to get a little bit more strict on handicap flags. Handicap flags are supposed to be requested through the admin office with Barbara, Jean, and David. As you all know, there's a lot of handicap flags that don't look like one another. So that means that they probably weren't taken from the admin office. I understand, and everybody understands here, that we are a retirement facility, so there's a lot of different reasons on why you would need a handicap flag. The key point here is that we need to come down and make sure that the handicap flags are actually legit and that we know that they have them rather than just people putting a flag on their cart. So that's going to get a little more strict in the next couple of years. We've been, over the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've kind of gotten a little bit more strict on the 90-degree rule. Now, it's really difficult to actually enforce this, so it's more or less we ask you to do this. And at the same time, you have to use your best judgment. Because 90-degree rule, if you only drive in 10 yards to another ball, you're going to take up more area if you go back to the cart and then back out to it. So it's your best judgment with a 90-degree rule. However, I have a couple videos that we'll post over the next couple weeks of I had the drone up and just watching a few groups, and you'll see what an abuse of a 90-degree rule is, and everybody understands that. So as long as we follow these simple rules, it really reduces on course compaction, and it helps our courses look beautiful throughout the remainder of the year, because as the other board members have said, this is your course. You own this facility. And it's pretty rare for a facility like ours to take the path that we've taken and get where we're at. I mean, it's not often that many courses can go from a almost public, semi-private status and go to where you're private and successful. This is a very successful club, and it's due part to the board members that we've had throughout the past years. We've had some really good boards. Pricing for our summer cooler pass. Now, this is always kind of a touchy area. Once May comes, or in the past, usually when May would come, most of our members would go home, so the course was empty. So this is obviously a prime time to generate revenue for the golf club. Over the past 2 seasons, though, we've had a lot of members stay through May, which puts a lot of strain on generating revenue because we generate probably about $150,000 from May through the middle of June. That's our prime season for actually selling the summer cooler pass because it's perfect weather here, and generally in the past they could get onto the golf course at a reasonable rate. Now in 2019, or fiscal year 2019, which was actually 2019, we had our busiest summer on record. It was crazy busy, to be honest with you, and we were flipping carts pretty much twice to 2.5 times every day. It was really good weather, which helped that. Members left very early, so it opened up the golf course. And at that time, we were still only charging $110 for our summer cooler pass, which is extremely inexpensive. I'm not going to say cheap, it was inexpensive. That is completely unsustainable. So once we looked at the number of rounds that we had that summer and what we were charging for a summer cooler pass, we went into 2020 and we developed some shoulder months. So in October and in May, we actually created 2 pricing levels that were in between our winter and summer months, which we'd never had here before. In the past, prior to 2020, we went from basically October 1st to November 1st, went from summer to winter. And then on April 30th to May 1st, it went from winter to summer. There was no middle grounds there. Well, with the amount of play that we were getting from non-members, and we were trying to go with the pathway to membership to increase our membership, we needed to somehow counterbalance this. We needed to actually reduce play in the summer, which sounds crazy. Yes, we were trying to get less play in the summer and still keep our same revenue. So what we did is we added those 2 shoulder months, October and May, and surprise, surprise, October was, the last 2 years has been record Octobers for us. It's not hard to believe that. It's just perfect weather in October, and we raised the rate, so obviously you're going to get higher than normal revenue. May, however, actually hasn't been as high as 2019, and the main reason for this is our membership. We're developing so many more annual members that play here through most of May, and we had a lot of semi-annual members that stayed through May. So when we have more members stay, it obviously limits how much revenue we can generate from outside membership. So to be honest with you, in 2020 when COVID hit, it actually benefited us a little bit because we increased our number of carts that we had, members stayed longer, and we're actually buying the summer cooler pass. And then the non-members came and we actually increased the price quite substantially, so we reduced our number of rounds and actually increased revenue throughout the summer. So that was pretty beneficial to us. 2021 came, we did the exact same thing. We raised the rate up a little bit more, changed a little bit how the summer cooler pass was in May. And again, our May revenue wasn't as high as 2019. However, we were able to accommodate all of our members and reduce the number of non-members that were on the course to keep our members happy, while still keeping revenue about the same. Going into 2020, it's probably going to be something very similar. We'll increase the summer cooler pass rate just a little bit, change some of the stipulations on it, because we anticipate we're going to have probably a little bit less semi-annual members here than last year. However, we have so many more new annual members, it's going to be a pretty busy May. So just look for that coming up in May. Now for the events coming on. Last year, we tried to keep a lot of the events, and I kept continually pushing them back, hoping some miracle would happen with COVID, and it never did. So a lot of the events were different than in the past. However, this year, when we got into November, we were going to have a welcome back event. Well, November is a terrible time to have an event. We usually only have one course open, and everybody else has all their other events going on. So we pushed that back to December, and I think we're going to keep this going forward because it worked out very well. And we had an anniversary event on December 12th. Or a member appreciation event, on December 12th. It was received very well by the membership, and I'm positive we're going to expand on it next year as long as protocols allow us to, and we'll probably have some type of dinner included with it. This year, going into the end of this month, we will have our Wisconsin NCAA Invitational back. They did not come last year. So that'll be great to have back. Now, there's a lot of changes with this just due to college policy. This year, unfortunately, families inside Westbrook are unable to host college teams, which used to be one of the great things with this event. We're going to try to add a collegiate volunteer event on the Friday preceding it. So all volunteers with this event from the past and this year will potentially have a chance to play with 2 college players out in a modified shamble on our Vistas course on the Friday evening, as well as a dinner. We have 14 teams coming this year. I've got them listed on the next. 15. No, I changed it to 14. There's 14. I just called them. There's 14 teams. There's 14 teams coming this year. We've got Charleston, Denver, Iowa, Kansas, Kansas State, Minnesota, Mississippi State, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Washington State, UNLV, and Wisconsin. And again, as I said, we're on February 25th, we're going to have the college volunteer event. It's going to be a 9-hole shotgun in the afternoon. Saturday following that, the Vistas course will be closed for their practice rounds. They do an 18-hole practice round the day of that and use the whole course for practicing. And then Sunday, they do 36-hole continuous play, starting about 8 in the morning. And then on Monday, they have a final shotgun for their final round with awards afterwards, and it's always a great thing if you can attend that. After that, on March 6th, we've moved the director's clip to March 6th because Peter will hopefully be open by then. We hope this year, we're pretty sure we're going to be able to have a horse race. Not pretty sure, we are going to have a horse race. So it's going to be just like in the past. We anticipate it to be extremely busy. Now, we've played with trying to get this on 2 courses. The problem with having 2 courses is on a normal Sunday right now, we're having about 350 to 400 rounds of golf. So if we're going to close down both courses for an event, we generally have to get quite amount of people to be able to participate in it. Last year we did all fivesomes, and the prior year I think we did as well. So we're planning this year to do all fivesomes at the Lakes course with a limited field of 165 players. Now, if we happen to get a whole bunch of people sign up to where they're in the 220 range, we will potentially use both courses. But again, we have to get to a very high number to justify closing both courses because we have such a high amount of play right now. But this is always a fun event. We start with 18 holes in the morning. It's completely blind drawn. 2 players will do a best ball. 3 players will do a scramble. It will be 3 flights. The top 6 teams in each flight will then go into a horse race after the lunch. And Peter will be doing the lunch. It'll be a boxed turkey sandwich, I believe. So after lunch, they go into a horse race, a 3-hole horse race. The top 2 teams from each of the flights will then go into a final horse race, and then the winner of the horse race is obviously the Directors' Cup champions. It's always a fun event. We have a great turnout for that, and everybody will enjoy it. In the middle of March, on the 11th through the 13th, we've got the George Fox girls coming down from Washington. They're down to 8 teams at the moment. Sometimes they have 9, but they're at 8 teams. It's a much smaller event than the NCAA. You can get pretty close. We have some really good players here, and they play at the Lakes course. If you're going to be playing golf on the 11th through the 13th, it will be very slim picking because we have to do a shotgun and a crossover for them. And again, there's going to be about 64 girls based off of individuals, so they're going to take up a big chunk of the course over at the Lakes in the afternoon. After that, we've got our club championship on April 2nd and the 3rd. It's basically the only weekend that works because we've got something every week from now on till that week. That's a fun event. I hope to get more participation this year. The more participation we get, the more we can do with it. Generally in the past, we only have about 100 members that play in this because we have so many different club championships. Next week is the Ladies Classic, which is their club championship. The week after that is the Men's Club Championship. We've already had the Weekend Men's Club Championship. And then we'll also have something for the couples, but that's more like the member guest. So there's a lot of club championships here, but this is actually the club championship. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, and she can talk about Chicago.
Thank you, Brandon. As you can tell, I let Brandon do a lot of speaking because Brandon knows a whole lot of stuff, and I like to listen to him talk. Before I go into my very short presentation, I'm hoping that everybody's hearing tonight the theme member benefit. In a minute, I'm going to talk about that. My husband and I, Bill, who's also been on the board, have lived here since 1991. Anybody else? And at that time, we brought up the term AAF, an AAF member, and it wasn't in 1991, but it's come up since. The course at that time belonged to UDC, and UDC decided to sell it to some, I don't know, Japanese person or something, and what happened at that time was what we live with a lot today. Because we always get questions about the CC&Rs that are with the state, why we're separate from the HOA, why the golf course is its own individual entity. And all of it stems back from when UDC decided to sell the course and basically put in the rules and regs with the state and the CC&Rs that are here today. I think that's important to understand because there were, I don't even remember how many of us at the time, who all kicked in money and bought the club within a month, and it was done. Because we said we did not want some other company coming in here and telling the homeowners who play golf what we wanted to do. We've come a long way. Now the term member benefit. One of the member benefits that we talk about here has to do with entertainment. We are a Westbrook golf family. We socialize together. So one of the things we came up with is bringing together different groups, tribute bands, pretty much, and offering them to our membership and some of the HOA folks as well. So come March 5th, we're going to have Chicago, the tribute band Chicago here, and we would love to have all of you buy tickets and come. You also heard in Brandon's presentation the summer cooler passes. Whenever we talk about something at the golf committee or at the board, we say, what would be the member benefit for that? That's first and foremost in our mind. Jim talked about it when he was up here. Well, the cooler passes for our members are not the same price as for the public. So I just want to speak out and say, we always have that at the forefront. And I thank you.
Thank you, Kathy and Brandon. Looking forward to the girls coming next month, NCAA event. For the 200 people or so that have never seen one because they weren't members, you should come out and see them. You'll appreciate the golf, I can promise you. You'll be humbled, for sure. Secondly, the Director's Cup, if all these new members, we've got over 200 in the last 2 years. The Director's Cup is an awful lot of fun. It's a huge member benefit, and you should all think about reserving those days on your calendar. Now to Tim and Keith. I wanted to thank, Tim O'Brien's been on the board, how many times now? Three times. He's volunteered, he's been appointed. Tim was very instrumental in getting our facilities group put together. 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have a facilities group. It was all run out of the Greens and Grounds with David Escobedo. Since Tim joined, we put in staff, we have a manager now, and we have clean bathrooms on the golf course every day, and we've got to appreciate that. So thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Kurt. I want to introduce the staff because you may or may not always see them. And as Jim explained to us and as we've been told, the golf course is what we pay attention to. I've done this for 40 years and nobody pays attention to the facilities. So we do what we do and we try to do the very best things we can for the members. And we have, Keith just joined us. Keith Simpson is the new facilities director, and the facilities manager, he just asked me, he said, are you gonna make me speak? I said, no, I won't do that to you this year, okay? Jim Picciuto is our facilities maintenance specialist, and he's got a lot of talent, a world of talent. And we've got now Christine and Brandy that you'll see there. They do the restrooms. And it was really fortuitous that we were able to create these kinds of positions before COVID hit. Because this is the group or their predecessors in some cases that kept us up and running through COVID, that allowed us to do things like change out the paper towel dispensers to touchless. The little things that nobody thinks about that this group of people are responsible for. So the lady that left before Keith, Mary Beth, was our first facilities assistant, and she is responsible for a lot of that, and she's responsible for some of the things you're going to see here in a few minutes. We must have done a pretty good job with her, and she must have been pretty good at her job because she's now the facilities manager at Desert Mountain. So a little bit of a step up. We hope for her, an awful lot of work, and we wish her the best. The other thing that happened was that, and we've talked about the extra duties that David takes on. When Mary Beth left, I had just returned and I came back in the fall. Mary Beth left, and we had to go through the process of finding a replacement. Well, David took that on. Jill asked David to go out, and we went through Indeed and some other processes. He collected the resumes. We went through them, and he and I and Jim went through the interview process that allowed us to find Keith. So thank you, David, and for those things that are not recognized as well as for your membership work. A couple of years ago, and we haven't talked for almost 2 years now because of the COVID thing and no meeting last year, we started what's called a ticket system, almost 2 years, right? Brandon found one and worked with Mary Beth, and we were able to put together what I call a work order system. It's a work ticket system. We found it out in the internet someplace and made it better. Pardon? I repurposed one. It was repurposed off of the internet for our purposes. And it now works to allow us to track and account for the things that we do in the maintenance operation and to separate out those things that are projects and capital, those things that are regular maintenance that have to be done on a scheduled basis, those things that people see, the staff reports or the members report that we need to get to, and our emergencies, and we kind of separate them out like that. This is just an example of what's happened in the last 12 months or so. They stay busy. There's a lot of other things that go on. So we stay busy with the ticket system. We also do a lot of management of outside contracts. And this is a good time to tell you that we are reducing those costs. Keith brings to us a number of skills, and so do Jim, that allow us to do a lot more in-house. And we're going to be able to reduce the amount of money that we spend in outside services. And when we talk about the lakes reopening, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But we do HVAC contracts, we do fire protection, the alarm systems, the fire protection in the kitchens, backflow preventers. There's a number of things that require either a certified person with some kind of a special license or an outside contractor that has a special skill. The reason that you don't always see what we do in facilities is going to become obvious here in a second. You don't want to, okay? One of the things that we did this year that was a big deal and we spent quite a sum of money on and a lot of time on was replacing the cast iron piping that had been put in through the middle of the kitchen at the bistro. And it feeds all of the other drains, all of the restrooms, and even is pumped up from the drain that is in the ball wash that used to be in the basement down there. Remember that this building was built by a residential contractor with the intent of selling it, okay? So what we got was not what we might imagine if we were to design a commercial building. And one of the things that's happened is over the years, the piping disintegrated. So there was an awful lot of work that went on. It also interfered substantially with the operation of the kitchen and the restaurant. And we did a couple of things. We dug it up and we replaced it. And then go to the next one, Brandon, because this is interesting. This was new to me. The main plumbing line that goes from the kitchen through a grease interceptor or bypasses it, depending on what it is, and all the way out to the street had disintegrated, which means from the back door of the kitchen all the way to the road, we had problems. We were able to find Jim and Mary Beth. With their help, we were able to find a company that does this epoxy resin liner. So to avoid digging up 100 feet of pipe, we were able to reline that. So we now have what is going to be a substantial life expectancy in that piping now, and it's a lot cleaner, and we can blow it out when we need to. We can run a snake through it. In the past, if we ran a snake through it, all we got back was pipe, and that wasn't good. So we also did some other things that go on maybe without being noticed. We did the roof at the cart barn. You probably did notice the work that we've done on the parking lots, and not one year, but about every other year, you're going to see some of that, because to keep from losing them and have to start all over again, we need to do maintenance on them. These are the kinds of things that we do with our capital. The next one was Mary Beth's parting gift to us. The offices and the administrative lobby over here at the lakes. And we had budgeted for this, and she was able to put together a design and help work with the contractor to get this done even through COVID. So if you haven't been in the office, you should go in. Hopefully you've been in the lobby after its remodel. Yeah, the courses are in great shape. These buildings are 30 years old. This one's 30 years old, and it needed a little bit of a facelift. And thank goodness we got it. We were able to do it. The board came up with the money, and she came up with the plan and ramrodded it through the summer. Just another example of the kinds of things, if you've watched the gates fall down, and Jaime has a lot to do with this too. We get a lot of cooperation, but he's quite a tradesman and quite a welder. And so we were able to do this with in-house labor and in-house help, and it saves us a substantial amount of money. Okay, these are the capital projects that we have planned to pass off. Now, I'm leaving the board again, so there'll be a new director of facilities. We will leave a 5-year plan and a 3-year pricing structure that is more up to date to today's prices, because they're not what they were a year ago or even 6 months ago. And these are some of the things that are on them. And one of the things that we have had to take on is the Lakes Restaurant updates for the new lease agreement. When we negotiated the new lease, we did a walkthrough and had a negotiation that included bringing that kitchen and that facility up to standard for those pieces of it that are the responsibility of the club. We had an inspection about 2 weeks ago. Last Wednesday, wow. It's even quicker than I thought. And in that inspection from the health department were included a number of very significant issues. And Keith and Jim have been able to go through and take out popcorn ceiling or cover it over, recoat it, repaint it. Peter's been able to come through and redo his bar. We've done a new door on the walk-in freezer. We're putting in new equipment in the kitchen where that was not up to current code. We've done a lot of plumbing changes on the above-ground plumbing because it now requires a different air gap than it had been before. We did what would have probably cost us $15,000 to $18,000 when we got the contractor next month to come do it. And from our position, the Lakes Bistro will be ready to open. It'll be ready to open on our part by noon tomorrow. Peter still got some things to do. When I talked with him this afternoon, he told me that he had his vendors lined up that need to come do what they need to do. And felt like he was going to be ready for a soft opening on Monday. So we're all hopeful that that's going to happen. We've got a couple of pieces of equipment that still need to come in. We've got one, a cooler that has to have a final measurement before we can order it, but it should be up and ready to go Monday. And that's all thanks to the skills that Keith brought to us and the help that he gets from Jim. So the reserve funding we do for roofs and air conditioners, it's a kind of a placeholder that I talked the board to put in because there's no telling at what point we're gonna have a roof leak or something dramatic happen to an air conditioner. And we've got a situation where, I think it was 2010 maybe, we had to buy a whole bunch of air conditioners on a lease purchase all at one time. I think there's 9 of them out there. They're all the same age. They're all going to crap out at the same time. So we've been trying to catch them, and the worst ones, or the ones that have a major component go out, we've been trying to replace them one at a time over the last couple of years so that we don't get caught in that quandary of trying to price out 9 air conditioners, some of which are bigger than bigger than others, all at the same time. So with that, is that it? Oh, yeah, well, this is the program that we have put in place over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's my belief and my experience over a lot of years that maintenance requires not only reactive maintenance that takes into account emergencies, but preventative maintenance, which means that we've got to have the air conditioners serviced every year or every 6 months. We've got to change filters every 3 months. And predictive maintenance. I'm telling you, the air conditioners are going to go, okay? I guarantee it, I just don't know when. So that's the program that we currently have in place that Keith is going to carry on for us and that the board has been willing to fund in the last 4 or 5 years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim and Keith. We're all looking forward to the bistro opening. I think the rest of us are. We'd like to quit bringing beer in a cooler when we play at the lakes. Some would. Some may still bring it in a cooler. Now for Leslie Brown. Leslie was held an appointed position on the board for about 2 years now. And Leslie was instrumental in finding us a new operator or new old operator for the bistro. There was a lot of work that went on when we learned that Mr. Ramsey was leaving and us finding a new operator. We had to interview operators, we had to develop contracts, there's a whole lot of behind the scene things, and Leslie was very involved with that. So welcome, Leslie.
Okay. Does that sound good? Okay. So now we turn to the boring but essential legal 2021 review. I'll keep it short and simple so that you guys can stay awake for Kurt's fascinating financial presentation. One of the things we did last year was we had a lot of questions from the board pertaining to the CC&Rs that affect our golf courses. So we brought in an attorney who is a specialist in homeowners association law to review all of the documents that govern our golf courses. And those documents include, starting at the top, the master CC&Rs. Every homeowner in Westbrook is familiar with these CC&Rs because they cover every property in Westbrook, including our golf courses. Next, we have one set of CC&Rs for each golf course. They're basically the same with a few variations that are specific to the courses. These CC&Rs regulate how we use the golf courses, and they set out the obligations of the golf course owners to the Westbrook Village homeowners. For example, the golf courses can only be used as golf courses, nothing else, and the ancillary uses that go with golf courses, like restaurants and pro shops and practice facilities. They also require the golf board to get the consent of the Architectural Control Committee for any alterations that we might want to make to the course. Lastly, we have the deed that conveyed ownership of the courses to the club in 1994 that reiterated that the courses were subject to all of these foregoing recorded documents. And it's important to know that none of these documents can be amended without the consent of the Westbrook homeowners. So we had Beth Mulcahy with the Mulcahy Law Firm review all of these documents for us, answer about 40 questions that the board had about these documents, and give us her feedback in a written document that will help the board in the future with their dealings with the Homeowners Association. Excuse me. All right, next we have the saga of the tennis court complex, the horseshoe pits, and the new well. So I think somebody mentioned this before, but if you remember, the HOA horseshoe pits were where our new well had to go. So when we started construction of the new well, the HOA came to us to ask if they could relocate their pits to that grassy area up in the upper right-hand corner of the tennis court complex. They were under the impression that we owned that grassy area. So we researched deeds and tax records and confirmed that that entire parcel is owned by the HOA. So they were free to move their horseshoe pits back there anytime they felt like it. We then, you'll see a survey on the left-hand side. We then split the cost of a survey with the HOA so that we could clearly define those property lines of the tennis court complex to make sure that the maintenance responsibilities were clearly defined and so that the HOA could keep their construction of their pits on their property and to know where those property lines were. Okay. I just want to say the HOA is still working on their plans for relocating those pits, and we'll be working with them to make that happen. This was kind of fun this summer. We got a letter, in June, from a law firm in California that evidently spends all their time monitoring the internet for copyright violations. They managed to find a photo that was posted on our website, which they said was copyrighted, which we used on our website to help illustrate our COVID social distancing policies. So when we got this letter, I contacted a intellectual property attorney that's a friend of mine, got some advice from her, wrote them back, offered a settlement for the original licensing fee, which was a few $100 versus the several $1,000 they wanted us to pay them to settle this disagreement. And they readily accepted our offer when they figured out that Westbrook Village Golf Club didn't have a ton of cash that they could tap into. So a lesson for everyone out there, if you're downloading photos or music or anything copyrighted, be aware people are out there looking for you. Some of us has touched on the restaurant already, but back in November, Ramsey Adeshu came to the board and informed us that he could no longer continue to operate a restaurant at the Lakes course. He told us that COVID, the 2 months of closures from the plumbing repairs, the well construction in his parking lot that took over well over a year had just put him to the point where he couldn't invest any more time, money, or effort in that restaurant. He also indicated he was having serious trouble keeping his kitchen staffed. So he offered to stay while we found a replacement for him, which we readily accepted. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay longer than the end of the year. In the meantime, we were actively searching for replacements. We created this request for proposal for the 4 candidates that had expressed an interest to us, so that they could present in writing their proposed menu, their proposed branding, their financials, and their restaurant experience and resume. Ultimately, we only got RFPs from 2 operators. 2 of the 4 dropped out. One was Gabe Rivas, who dropped out because he didn't feel in this labor market that he could operate and staff 2 kitchens. The other interested party dropped out because he had some concerns about the profitability. So that left us with Chef Peter as one and another operator. The board interviewed both of these candidates and selected Chef Peter. And we selected Chef Peter because he had the greatest amount of restaurant experience, and he also did not have any concerns about staffing the restaurant. So last month, we have one more. Chef Peter signed a 5-year lease, and we're all anxiously awaiting his opening. And now for the fascinating financial presentation.
Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate it. Anybody need stretch? Get up? No? Okay. Before I start, I'd wanted to introduce someone that probably everybody knows, but we've got plenty of new members. Barbara Jean Strussel, she's invaluable to the club. Barbara Jean, how long have you worked for us? 19 years now she's been watching the books, and she knows what's under every rock and where everything is. In fact, when we remodeled her office as part of the restoration, we had a difficult time having her separate herself from 19 years worth of files. But somehow we managed to do it. The shredder had a good time that day, I think. So thanks, Barbara Jean, for all your loyalty to this place. Financial review. First, I'd like to say through the first 3 months of the year 2022 fiscal year, the club's performing quite well, and it's either exceeding or operating at budget. Revenues are above budget as we continue to optimize our membership by implementing our Pathway to Membership plan. Annual, semi-annual, and weekend memberships are up, while we're cycling down monthly and associate categories. Water revenues are also up thanks to the City of Peoria price increase that we use to determine our prices to our HOA customers. Fortunately for golf in general, golf has become a COVID-era activity of choice, which is driving many players to our game. We've completed a modern, efficient well operating at the lakes. This $1.2 million investment will support the club for many years into the future. And finally, the club is generating adequate cash to fund our capital plan and service our loan payments at an increased level. We do have some headwinds, though, that will have to be dealt with as we proceed through the fiscal year. We have a leveraged balance sheet. There isn't much room left for debt financing in the near future. Losing and then finding an operator at the Lakes Bistro restaurant resulted in the unplanned loss of lease revenue for fiscal 2023 through until fiscal 2023. We have yet to determine what kind of damage solo cart usage is going to cost us. It's understood there's compaction, damage to our dormant Bermuda fairways, but it's difficult to quantify the damage until the growth happens in the spring. We budgeted inflationary increases into our budget when it was prepared last June, but was it enough? Things have changed in the economy since last June. And finally, golf course inputs, things like fuel, seed, and fertilizer. What will they be like in another 12 months or 6 months? There's no way of knowing right now. Now on to the three financial statements that make up a business. First, the income statement. This is the revenue slide. You can see in the second column from the left, that's our fiscal year 2022 budgeted figures. If you follow down the column, you can see we're estimating about $123 million. If anybody's been around here, if you looked at the finances, this is only the second year we've exceeded $4 million in operating revenue that I've seen. The next column over is first quarter. These are actual results. You can follow that down. But more significantly, the third column is a ratio of the first quarter actual against budget. And that gives you an idea how we're performing at or above budget in the revenue category. If you see a membership, green fees, these categories that go down, anything that exceeds 25% means we're operating above budget for the year. And you can see everything except cart fees and restaurant leases, we understand why that is, are actually operating on or above budget. Now on to expenses, the other part of the income statement. Again, the same arrangement as before, but this time we're looking at expenses. We've budgeted at the bottom under fiscal 2022 budget. We budgeted $3.608 million in expenses. Our first quarter actual is $1.036 million, so we're at about 29% of our budget, which means we've exceeded our budget about 4% so far. And all the categories, as you go down the side, are below 25% except for golf. Golf course expenses are what I call lumpy. They don't reoccur every month. We have a lot of inputs that we buy in October: fertilizer, seed, sand, gravel, and those things hit the budget early, and they're mitigated as we go through the rest of the year. So I would expect the golf course budget would be on plan, or perhaps a little more, depending on how inflation hits us. The balance sheet, this is the second financial statement. And this is probably the most important one, but one that not everybody enjoys looking at. This is what bankers look at. They spend a lot of time on balance sheets. On the left side, if you remember your accounting, a balance sheet, you have assets and liabilities and equity, and they're supposed to balance. So you can see at the bottom of the left-hand side of the table, we have total assets of $12.486 million. If you go up into current assets, you can see we have cash on hand right now of $1.5 million. We have accounts receivable at about $614,000. We have inventory of $95,000. That's basically what's in the pro shop. And we have some prepaid expenses for taxes and things like that. So our total current assets are $2.233 million. Now on to the liability side. We have total current liabilities of $2.82 million. We have long-term liabilities of $2.6 million. That's basically the loan that we used to finance the lip improvements in 2015 and the Lake's well construction in 2020. So our liabilities total $5.383 million, and our membership equity is about $7.1 million. And so you balance equities and liabilities against assets. Why do we say things are leveraged? You can see that bankers use quite a few different ratios when they look at balance sheets. One, for example, is they look at current assets to current liabilities. You can see we have more current liabilities than assets. That's not necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. They like to see it at 1. This is less than that. So anyhow. And last thing is the third financial statement is the cash flow. And this is the lens that I'm presenting here is a 3-month cash flow. It's from October 1st through the end of December. You can see that our cash flow is negative $661,000. But that's through the lens of 3 months. You actually should look at cash flow over longer periods of time. I'm quite sure the cash flow will be positive by the end of the fiscal year. For example, our 5-year cash flow for the club is a positive $550,000. So we've actually generated $500,000 of cash in 5 years. But even though we've been funding improvements of nearly $600,000 a year through the capital plan. One thing I've done to try to simplify things for our board members when we're looking at financing is, there's an old saying that cash is king in a business. So one of the things we do is monitor how much cash we have at any given period of time. And this is a 6-year chart of cash availability in any given month in any given fiscal year. You can see at the top left of the chart is fiscal, I think the red pointer's on there. That's fiscal year 2022, and right now we have about $1.5 million in the bank. We've never had that much money in the bank in the last 5 years. Last year we had, I think it's that one there. What is that, 600,000? So we have nearly $1 million more this year than we had last year at the same period of time. It's quite an incredible turnaround, and it's indicative of this pathway to membership and how we're flipping our membership from pay to play to annual, semi-annual, and weekend membership. It's all right there. What do we got next, Brandon? Oh, capital spending plans. This is fun stuff. The column on the right is our budgeted plans. We plan to spend, this chart shows $560,000 in capital. That's actually not true. If you look up at irrigation is a placeholder. We don't expect to spend $100,000 unless we have some crises like a Vista well problem. And then also under facilities, we've got $131,000, but about 20,000 of that is what Tim discussed. That's a placeholder for air conditioners. So I would expect we'd only spend somewhere around $420,000 to $450,000 this year on capital investments. The loan. We obviously owe the bank a lot of money. They've been, this is a new banker for us. We found these guys a year ago when we needed financing for the well. This is through the National Bank of Arizona. They're a subsidiary of Zion Bank out of Salt Lake City. The board is elected to accelerate the repayment of our $2.6 million loan. This loan's a combination of the LIP project in 2015 and the Lakes well construction incurred in fiscal year 2020. We've elected to increase the payments to $20,000 per month. If this repayment continues in this manner, in 10 years, we'll have the debt reduced to $1 million. And this will put us in the position to perhaps finance a Vista's irrigation replacement that we all expect will happen. That irrigation system will be 30 years old, 35 years old by then. Next slide. Projects and programs still awaiting funding. The first one, Lakes Range facility expansion. We've got a lot of discussion, particularly this time of year, about the range at the lakes and how beat up it gets. Last year, we hired an architect, Gary Brawley. He came in and helped us redesign the whole practice facility. That's including the chipping green and the range, and to free up some parking for carts. And he gave us quite a few options. I'm just giving you the worst, not the worst case, but the grand case would be, if we institute all his plans, it would be a $200,000 investment to do what we'd like to do over in the lakes practice area. Quite a bit of money. The next one is the Vistas Greens turf conversion. This plan has been around for a while. The discussion is whether we flip the greens at the Vistas to turf similar to what we have at the lakes or something new and modern, whatever that may be at the time. We estimate that would be about a $140,000 project. And unfortunately, it would require we close a portion of the course for the summer. The next thing is continue the Vistas bunkers restoration. We have 6 bunkers that still need to be restored. This restoration includes taking all the sand out, putting in a rubberized liner, and then replacing the sand. We estimate that project at about $38,000. It still needs funding. Turf reduction to further reduce irrigation needs. We reckon this costs us about $5,000 an acre to do. This includes killing the old grass, which, by the way, is surprisingly more expensive than one would think. Then buying decomposed granite to lay down. We have to redo irrigation lines. We have to lay the DG, rake it, et cetera, et cetera. This is important, and you heard about this before from Rick in Greens and Grounds. We have a mandate through something called the ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, that has mandated that all golf courses in Arizona go to 90 irrigated acres by 2025. So that's our challenge, to get our courses to 90 acres by 2025 at a cost of $5,000 an acre to remove what we need to. Continue to level tees, costs about $12,000 a tee to level. That's a rough estimate. Could be more, could be less. One of the tees we'd like to do is the second hole at the Vistas. That's a pretty complicated project because we want to move a cart path and make that tee wider. And that could be more at the $12,000 cost. And then the last thing is the Vistas irrigation replacement. This is replacing wiring, valves, pipes, much like what we did at the lakes in 2015. This is in the future. We're hopeful it'll last till 2030. And this is just a swag, about $2 million to do that project. Oh, opportunities. There's always opportunities, and these are a few that we'd like to explore going forward. Number one, find new HOA water customers. There are several HOAs that abut our courses that could be purchasing water from us if we could contract it with them. We need to think about that. We need to continue to optimize our membership rolls. As we said, we want to cycle down monthly and associate members and bring on more ASW members that pay, that are more important to the club. I hate to say it, but that's the key. Increase summer outside play fees. Brandon spoke about that. Further turf removal, some financed by the Arizona Tourism Grant to reduce golf course maintenance. And then think about how we can further monetize our assets. We have land, we have buildings, we have restaurants. Perhaps there's ways to monetize those things that we haven't yet thought about. Unfortunately, those things all fall under the HOA rules, CC&Rs. They both present hurdles, and so does the IRS. We're a nonprofit organization, so our profits are limited to 15% of our total revenue. Our outside income is limited to 15% of our total revenue. So we have a balancing act there.
What is that basically numbers do you seem to be 15% of our revenue?
Well, roughly, it's 15% of $4.1 million. Threats. There's always opportunity, there's always threats out there. A big threat in my mind is further statewide water reduction mandates. We have absolutely no control over this situation. This Arizona Department of Water Resources was set up by the state legislature 50 years ago. And in 50 years, they've been implementing mandates on water, slowly but surely, decreasing the amount of water that's available, not only to golf courses, to all sorts of things. And the golf community doesn't have a lot of legislative power. We met with Gary Brawley, brought this to our attention. Gary Brawley, the architect, is a representative of the golf course community in Arizona that actually spends some time with the legislature arguing our position. So this is important. I think it's maybe one of the biggest things in the future that we need to consider. Will golf popularity continue after COVID? Who knows? We never could have imagined that a pandemic would drive so many people to play golf again, but perhaps they were going to enjoy it and they'll stay with it. I hope so. If you look at HOA water lease revenue, the Westbrook HOA is doing a pretty good job with irrigation water, and their irrigation needs are actually going down. They've gone down the last 2 years as they remove trees and optimize their watering system. So we could potentially be leasing less water in the future to them. The Vista's irrigation system is aging. We are hopeful that it'll last till 2031. We make repairs on a daily basis out there. If it fails before we're in a position to finance a repair, we're going to have to do some creative thinking on raising revenue or raising money for that. If we have any other major system or equipment failure, the Vista's well is perhaps as old as the lake's well. It's still running fine, by the way. It's not going to break, but we never imagined that the lake's well would have broken or failed 2 years ago. So it's a concern. If we're unable to continue accelerated loan payments, that's important. We need to get this debt down. Debt limits your opportunities going forward when you're a business because you're spending money on financing fees and interest. We have a $2.6 million loan. If you look at the financing fees on that over 10 years, it's an incredible amount of money. It's millions of dollars. So we need to get this loan paid down as quick as we can. And finally, maintaining our banking relationship. You have to deal with the devil sometimes when you need money. And banker, you can't imagine what this board went through looking for bankers. Not many people want to loan money to a golf course. We went through the banker we had, Chase, abandoned us when we needed money for the well. So we were left in a lurch. So this banking relationship we have with National Bank of Arizona is very, very important, and I hope, whoever the new board members are, I hope we embrace the bank in a positive way. So in summary, The revenues, particularly on the ASW membership categories, are exceeding budget for the year. Expenses so far have been held at budget. We'll see how we do the rest of the year, given the inflation pressures that we're dealing with. We're making investments in the facilities and the golf course without debt. We're servicing our existing debt in an accelerated manner. But we do have some headwinds. We have inflation will adversely affect our expense budget. Costs to mitigate possible compaction damage to the dormant Bermuda grass is yet to be identified. We just don't know what that's going to cost us. The unplanned loss of the Lakes restaurants going to impact us about $25,000. I think that's the revenue loss there. And of course, the big question, will the popularity of golf continue after COVID wanes? But despite all this, it appears that Westbrook Village will have a very good financial year. So, with that, we finished the presentation required by Article 3 of our bylaws in 2 hours. I'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight. I wish we would have had a bigger crowd, but I'm sure COVID did that. We'll entertain questions now, if anybody'd like to ask any. No? Oh, we have a microphone here, yeah. Okay.
Is it on?
Testing.
I could hear him, I think. Yeah.
Is the debt, is it fixed or is it adjustable, or what's it tied?
It's fixed. It's a 3.24 interest rate. It's a 10-year loan amortized over 20 years. So in 2031, we have to renegotiate what's left on that loan.
Kurt, are books kept in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles?
Yes. In fact, we'll get our CPA will be presenting his audited review anytime soon, maybe next week. We have audited records of our books.
The reason I ask the question is,
Yeah.
how could you have a negative cash flow and have $1.6 million in the bank of cash?
Well, it's the way cash flows is calculated.
I know what cash flow is.
I know you do. But if you look over, you have to look over a lens of a certain period.
Your balance sheet shows cash of something, $2
Yeah.
million.
We do. We have $1.5 million in the bank right now.
What we have spent to list.
Over a 3-month period, because of what we've done, and this is interesting, but you need to think about it. We have granted access to our golf course to members that have not paid their membership dues yet. They pay monthly. They owe us $600,000, these members. The membership fee is not a month-by-month fee. It's owed October 1st. But through past precedents, we've granted people the ability to pay on a monthly basis. This goes back years and years ago. I'm not sure why, but that's $600,000 we ought to have, and that would turn that negative $600,000 cash flow into zero, or nearly so.
To the entire board and new members, 2 things. As far as the waiting list, I believe, and I'm sure that bylaws will have to be changed, but that's okay. I believe the Westbrook residents should be bumped to the top of the list. So if there are, 20, that they are? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good, that's one thing done.
85% of the membership must be Westbrook homeowners.
That's in our bylaws. 85% of the membership at Westbrook has to be Westbrook homeowners.
Okay, well, okay, that's number 1, done. Number 2, I'm not the only one that had a problem with the way the voting was done, and again, it's gonna have to be changed. I believe this country was formed with one person, one vote, and if there is a couple that both play, I'm not talking about a household member, a full-time couple's membership, that's two people, two votes. Now, if you're a single membership, I understand that's one vote. I have no problem with 6-month membership. They pay almost as much as full-time memberships, having a full vote. And I would even go so far as to say the 2 and 3 month, well, the weekend members pay almost as much too. The 2 and 3 month, you get no vote or half a vote until they're full members. But the main issue is 2 people, 2 votes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I'm not an expert on bylaws, but Leslie might want to speak to it, but our bylaws would have to be changed, which would be a vote of the membership and a quorum and et cetera, et cetera.
The board is reviewing all the bylaws, so let's make that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. We're for this year, the plan is to practically rewrite the entire set of bylaws. It will take some time to get that done, and so we'll put that on a list of things to discuss when we get to that point. But currently, the bylaws consider, if you think about the club as a company, a membership is equal to 1 share. So whether you have 2 golfers or not, you have 1 membership or 1 share in the company, and so you have 1 vote. But again, we can have that conversation when we address the bylaws.
I have a question on membership, and I don't know if I'm gonna, I don't want to sound curt, and I don't want to sound disrespectful when I say it, but the question is, I love the idea of us going to 1 or 2 membership levels. Has anyone considered what the 2nd and 3rd order effect is on the 2 or 3 month memberships when folks come in here and rent a property and they're only here 2 months? Do they, I'm sure Brandon probably goes like this, oh no, I got 10 more members that are gonna be looking for tee times for these 2 months. But have we thought through that at any level at this time?
Well, I can't address it like the membership guys can, but yes, we think about that all the time. We discuss that at every board meeting, trying to sort this thing out. It's a discussion item, and it's a new one. We didn't have this problem a year ago, so it's a good problem to have. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I just want to do a little comment about the Lakes practice green.
We can't hear you.
I can hear myself. But anyway, I just wanted to add a little bit. The next time you're over at the Lakes practice green, there's a plaque over there with all the donors, and I'm not tooting myself because there's some Rick and Jim and Jill and Rick Davis and other contributors. There's 14 names on that plaque. But if you just happen to see them, sometimes say, hey, thank you, we appreciate it. That's all,
Well, thank you. Everyone looks still attentive. And if you have any questions that come up tonight or tomorrow, you're always welcome to talk to a board member. Maybe not while we're playing golf, but other times.
Well, if you want to stay after and ask a question.
Yeah, we'll be here for a while. They're going to start breaking down the meeting room soon, so thank you all.